The reason you're stuck in 200 view jail is probably just because your content sucks. It's not because you're shadow banned. It's not because of hashtags. It's not because of time of posting. It's just because your content sucks. But that's okay, because it can always get better. And like everything, social media is always evolving and changing. So once you actually understand the depths and nitty gritty of what actually works on social media and pretty much the language and culture of social media, you can make your content not boring and you can start to break out of that 200 view jail. What's up, everyone? My name is Jude. For my own personal account, I've generated over 400,000 followers. And for clients, we've generated over 1 million followers and over 10 million views. And on the social media team alone, we have over 4 million followers. And also the creative manager for the CEO, CFO, and general manager of Gym Launch. My goal is to make my own Instagram page that I started from scratch a couple months ago a real-life case study that all my advice actually works, and to see less boring influencers in the world, me leading by example, hopefully. What a great segue into the topic of this video, how to not be boring in your content. First off, I'm sure you guys have probably heard from all the boomers out there. All the kids today just have no patience, no attention span, and I honestly disagree with those people. I don't think attention spans are getting shorter. I just think there's so much more demand of everyone's attention that people are just valuing their own attention at a much higher price. And you have to do a lot more in order to stand out and in order to get somebody's attention, because everyone wants it. It's extremely oversaturated, and it's super apparent that every time someone goes anywhere, they're being advertised to, sold something. Even if they're not being sold something, some person is trying to gain their attention, which is why people are just valuing it at a higher price. So doing the same exact stuff that everyone else is doing to try to get the same person's attention is obviously not going to work. You have to do stuff that's different, and you have to approach social media in a manner that speaks to the people who are on social media, and you have to think about the reason why people are even on social media at all. Most people are usually on social media just to be entertained. And yes, there are people who go on to learn something, but that's usually YouTube. I'm talking about short form content. Most of the time when people are scrolling on Reels, it's usually to escape some sort of situation or just to get that dopamine rush. And a lot of people get it wrong where they're not catering to that dopamine rush. And that doesn't mean being super on the entertainment side and compromising your brand image and stuff like that. That just means framing your videos in a way that'll still give them that dopamine rush while still getting the message across that you want to get across. And there are a couple ways to do that I'm going to go over. Disclaimer, I never claim to be some social media guru that knows all the answers. This is just what's worked for me and my clients, which has gotten us over 10 million views, 6 million followers combined across all of it. So I'm just telling you what has worked for us. Don't come at me. These are the two main things that I found will make anyone's content more interesting, no matter what it is you're selling, what it is you're trying to teach, or just anything you're trying to do in general on social media. Short form specifically. Now, I know you guys have heard from every single guru how important the hook is. Oh, you need to get the hook right. You only have 3 seconds to get their attention. The hook, the hook, the hook, the hook. And a lot of people also get the hook wrong. They think just saying some sort of super bold statement at the beginning of the video is going to make a hook do better, which sometimes it does. It won't always get the response you're looking for. There's a way to not be a total asshole or a total negative fear-mongering human in your content and still get someone's attention in the first millisecond that they decide if they're going to scroll or not. And that comes with a visual disruptor. The visual disruptor is what's going to get someone to stop scrolling and pay attention to you versus the person before that they just swiped on. Now, a lot of people also take this out of context and think that means that you have to do some crazy backflip, some crazy stunt, or do some crazy edit to phase you in. That would work, and that's also really cool, and I definitely recommend that, but it doesn't always have to be that extreme. A great example of how visual disruptors made its way into mainstream social media is that whole trend that you guys see going on with the person falling off the building and then it transitions to a car salesman who's doing push-ups, like, oh, buy this car, or the car crash thing where they fly off the car and then they jump in the screen. That's a perfect example of someone taking a visual disruptor and adding it to their own scenario. And then that also plays into my second topic, which is user-generated stuff, which we'll get into later. If you think that just sitting in front of the camera with a super nice backdrop, nice camera, nice lighting is going to get someone's attention on short form, you're very much mistaken. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Gary Vee, Alex Hormozi, Iman Ghazi, that's all they do and they have millions of views. Right. You're not them, A, and B, they were doing that when that was what was trending at the time, and that's how you were able to get people's attention with that style of content. Now that they've already built a following through that way, people already know their face, and they have other ways of doing visual disruptors that require way less effort than, say, someone starting off right now where people have no idea who you are, they've never seen your face before, they do not give a single fuck about what you have to say unless you give them a reason to. They just assume now that every single person who starts in this kind of setup with nice lighting, your bookshelf behind you, looks like some sort of guru entrepreneur who's going to spit some bullshit advice and try to sell them something at the end. So break that belief. So my single first piece of advice if you want to make your content less boring is get the fuck out of your studio. Like I said, if you don't want to do it to some crazy degree like the other examples I gave, you can literally just start by not being in your studio when you film the content. Go film it at a basketball court, at the gym, outside, at the pool, literally any other location except for your studio, because I promise you, unless you have some crazy negative hook that's really going to catch people's attention, or some news or something going on in the world right now that's already trending and people you can just swing off that, you're more than likely not going to get their attention, and you're going to continue to be stuck in that 200 view jail and feel like no one cares about your stuff because they don't. You haven't given them a reason to. So my first piece of advice, get the fuck out of the studio, go to a bunch of different locations, regular everyday locations, so people automatically will put their guard down and start implementing those different locations into your content. Now, the next step of that is adding some sort of action within those new locations that is more of a visual disruptor. For example, if you go to the basketball court, you can start off by chucking a ball behind you, or you can start off by playing basketball, crossing people up and saying whatever you want to say while you're playing basketball. Or if you're outside at the beach, it could look like some sort of aesthetic video of you just like staring at the water. You turn around, you give your piece of advice. There's so many ways that you can do it. If you want to take the visual disruptor to another level, add some sort of action in these different locations that would catch people's attention that they're not used to seeing from people who are giving them advice. Another great example, you could be at the gym benching with the camera over you while you're giving your advice. You could be running and someone's in front of you running backwards with the camera while you're giving your advice. Just stuff that people aren't used to seeing from people who are just talking on social media. And there are so many ways that you can be creative with this kind of stuff with the visual disruptor. This was a great example that I saw a while ago.
Nobody gives a shit about your link in bio anymore. You're missing out on thousands of dollars and millions of views by telling people to check the link in your bio. Instead, make this one simple change to get more leads than you can handle. First, you're gonna wanna go to ManyChat, press the automation button and then press new automation. Now you're gonna see a bunch of templates. Select this one and press setup template. Now press the first button and choose a post. Press continue and add the keywords you want people to comment. Add these comment replies and click save. Then press on this button right here and type the message you want your viewers to receive once they comment the keyword. And then press this button to add the link and then press set live. Now you're ready to go. Comment chat and I'll send over the full step-by-step tutorial right now.
This was a long time ago, but basically that hook was so strong that people didn't really know how to react. And then as soon as he closed the book, he got straight into the advice, and then it catered to the right people and they reacted and responded well, because not only was it proof of concept because he was giving social media advice and his hook was amazing, but the visual hook was so strong that people were disrupted by it and continued to watch what he had to say. There's a lot of micro examples from your favorite creators doing this kind of concept that you probably don't even realize. For example, when Alex Hormozy takes his shirt off and walks down the street giving a piece of advice. That follows my rule of not being in the studio. I don't know if you've noticed, but most of his content has not been in a studio since like 2020, unless it's a podcast clip. He knew that his existing following was getting used to seeing him in a certain way, usually at a speech, conversation, podcast clip, wearing clothes. So he thought he would throw them off by taking his shirt off when he started off a video. Now, most of his fans know that he's in shape and they know he's big, but seeing him with his shirt off was just a whole nother level of a visual disruptor that they were not used to seeing, which is hence why it performed so well and why he continued to make that kind of content following, because he noticed that that visual disruptor was strong. And in the comments, you can see people reacting to that visual disruptor, reacting to the fact that he had his shirt off, commenting on it, boosting engagement. There you go. And it also worked as a visual disruptor to his non-existing audience, because most people aren't used to seeing some big, hairy, buff dude giving some really solid business advice. So it's all about just doing stuff that your viewers are not used to seeing and that new viewers are also not used to seeing. Keeping the pace of however you caught their attention throughout the entire video. Don't drop off and be boring after you catch their attention. And boom, your videos will start to be less boring. And I promise you, hit me up if this doesn't work. I'll give you $50 out of my home bank account. I'm willing to guarantee you that if you've just been doing talking heads like this on your page over and over and over again, you're in like 20 to 100 view jail. Try one of the ideas that I just put out there. You'll see some sort of spike in your views and engage. I will die on that. Now, the second thing you can do to make your content more engaging and way less boring is something called user-generated content. And this is something that's mostly on my page. I've been mainly sticking to user-generated content just because it's the stuff that I like to make. And it also speaks the language of social media. Like I said, my page is a case study of all the advice I give. I'm trying to show that if you learn the nitty-gritty, the culture, and what people are already seeing on social media, people will start to like you more, put their guard down, and they'll listen to what you have to say because you're giving them a reason to. You're feeding that dopamine rush every time they're scrolling by making it seem like it's something they're used to seeing, which is why they're on social media in the first place. So what is UGC? User-generated content. This is content that users are currently generating themselves and that users are currently seeing on their day-to-day. The contrast of that, which might make it easier to understand, is probably what you've been doing is manufactured content. It's content that's forced, and it seems like you have some sort of motive behind what you're creating, and people are not used to seeing that. And people were so used to seeing that they're not seeing it anymore because people don't give it attention anymore, which is why you're not seeing it at all. And people who are scrolling on social media are seeing a certain kind of content with a certain cadence, with a certain kind of captions, with a certain type of sound, and that's all user-generated content. That's stuff that actually works, that's trending. That's stuff that most boomers don't understand when you show them. They have no idea what you're showing them and why it works. It's pretty much why a piece of bread just standing still and falling over can get over 1 million views. You don't believe me? Look it up. That's literally a thing going on right now. So how can you start making user-generated content without completely sacrificing your brand image? It's probably what you're asking yourself. I'm pretty sure you've already seen it happen and you just didn't even realize it. For example, I don't know if you guys remember that old trend. We're bankers. Of course we're gonna we're real estate agents. Of course we're gonna That started off as a trend amongst users of the platform, and it got so widespread that people started applying it to their business, to their industry, whatever it is they were trying to sell. And not only did this perform well because it was a trend, but it performed even better because people who were regular users on social media subconsciously probably had some respect for those people who ironically shouldn't understand that kind of content. Not only did it perform well because it was a trend in itself and it was already trending, but it also performed well because there's this thing when people who shouldn't understand social media understand it. People always think it's hilarious and they respect it and always engage with it and watch more. If you see some old guy who looks like he should not understand those trends doing those trends, it's always going to perform well. Maybe not always, but most of the time it will perform well because they shouldn't understand it, but they do. And it's ironic, which makes it even more controversial and engaging. For a great example of this is Duolingo, the Brooklyn Nets, Ryanair. If you check out their pages on social media, most of it is user-generated content and it's trending stuff that current users are making and are used to seeing. They understand that current users of social media are not going to want to see some sort of advertisement. You never want to openly and bluntly sell to people on organic social media. And now it's gone to such the degree where you don't even want to talk to the camera and give advice anymore in a studio setting because that's been associated with selling and people don't want to be sold to on social media. They want to take a break from stuff. They want to get that dopamine rush. So if you look at those companies, they clearly understand what people want to see and they're spinning what's currently working and trending onto their own company. I highly recommend you go check out their pages if you're struggling to figure that out. And the easiest way to figure out what's currently working on social media and what users are currently creating is literally just opening your For You page and seeing what's working. Because obviously if it made it to your For You page, more than likely it's doing well and the algorithm pushed it to your For You page, which probably pushed it to a ton of other people's For You page. So just open your social media, start getting more familiar with what's working and what language people are speaking on social media, and just spin it and apply it to your own content. Let me give you a tactical example real quick of how you can apply this. This is something that I talk about a lot with people who are trying to get into this space and trying to figure out how they can do user-generated stuff. It's called the POV framework. Basically, the POV framework is you want to take some sort of relatable scenario within your industry, you add it with some sort of common enemy, which is someone that people within your industry or niche or whatever already don't like, and then you exaggerate it a little bit, and then you add POV ... whatever the scenario is. A great exercise that I like to use with my clients is I like to ask them, okay, what do you go through in a day that bothers you within your industry? And they start listing stuff out. I'm like, okay, how can we exaggerate on this to make it funny, but also make it relatable to the right eyes within your industry? So if you're trying to figure out how to get into user-generated content, I highly recommend sit down, write down all the shit that annoys you. And I'm sure you have a lot because most people are always angry anyways. So just write down all those ideas, turn them into relatable scenarios, add some sort of common enemy that causes that scenario, exaggerate the scenario and act it out in some sort of POV format. And if you don't know what that is, just go on Instagram, look up POV. You'll find a ton of examples of it. And boom, you have your first UGC video. This is more for the people who are open-minded and really want to try being different with social media. And yeah, I totally understand some brands this won't work for, which is why I would recommend going the visual disruptor route to still get people's attention in a way that's somewhat native and will still make your content less boring. So, like I said, I don't know all the answers regarding social media. I'm just saying what's helped me get over 10 million views for me and my clients and over 4 million followers across the board. Hopefully you like this. Hopefully this helped in some sort of capacity. Make sure you subscribe if you want to be less boring on social media, and I'll see you in the next video.